And we are live.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, to the WeAreChange News wrap-up show. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the Civil War, an actual new economic war, to Sidious trap. I can't say that word. I'm going to need your help on that later, Jason. And, of course, an important article that happened every day of this week. I also get the last laugh at Jason Bermas and also some carnivore talk at the end of this broadcast. So it is 7 p.m. Eastern, July 8th, 2018. And Jason, how are you and how was your Civil War this week?
Well, I'm fine. If I could recap just for a second, my Civil War experience was pretty tough, Luke. I was tweeting to compatriots about, coming together on real issues that aren't about left or right, Luke. They're about right and wrong. Well, a man dressed in green with a cardboard sword, he took aim, Luke, at a scruffy bearded gentleman with a latte. Latte? Is that how the kids say it now? Latte.
I went to Coney Island, and if the people who are making predictions about a civil war would have a live stream down at Coney Island down here in Brooklyn, they might have been somewhat correct. I mean, it was just insane. The more I live in New York City, Jason, the more I wonder what am I doing here? There was actual fist fights and street fights because there were so many people clamored together. But just the usual Brooklyn, New York City neighborhood friendly love that we show each other here, and the truth and honesty that New Yorkers are so filled with.
Why don't you I'm Orange County, get to Rockland, maybe Dutchess. You could still do your city stuff. It'd be cheaper. There'd be some humanity there. The people are a little nicer. None of that. No.
I'm thinking like Argentina, Chile, Vietnam. I'm thinking far away from this place as much as possible. But anyway, regarding this broadcast, I'm happy everyone had a very happy and safe 4th of July. Everything was very calm. Everything was very peaceful. But there actually was a war started this week, and it was mainly an economic one, which is going to bring us into the first story that we're going to be talking about. The major story that I think is most important that happened this week is, of course, the official declaration that the trade war has started between China and the United States. To me, this is a very, very big story because the United States, just after midnight on Friday, made good on its promises and threats and imposed sweeping tariffs on China, putting a 25% border tax on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods imported to the United States. And of course, Americans will also expect to see the prices of auto parts, industrial machinery, medical devices all increased by 25%. China is, of course, answering back with their own tariffs, and that, of course, will hit their automotive, meat, and seafood industry here in the United States. So, as we can see, China and the United States are pretty much testing each other's resolve right now. And this, as even according to Zero Hedge and many experts, is going to get economically ugly. And from my own personal point of view, I think we also have seen Bitcoin rise this week. But from my own personal view, this is not good because more tariffs mean more money for governments, including the Chinese and U.S. governments. And overall, I don't see that as a good thing, Jason.
No, sir, I don't either. The problem is that it's going to push this beyond, I think, just a monetary battle. When trade wars get ugly, that's when weapons start being used. That's where espionage is a more regular thing. That's what we've seen in our historical past. And really, Luke, we've been accustomed to living in a world where we are the superpower. When I say we, the United States. I know that you are a dual citizen, a world traveler. Maybe it's not we, but the United States is the superpower. We are accustomed to that. You living in Poland were accustomed to the Soviet Union being the other superpower. Well, guess what? Superpowers are rising. And is the question, Luke, that these are going to be the third, because they're already the third superpower. Will they be the superpower, the big daddy, Luke? And will this bring military conflict?
Well, this is an issue that, of course, should be highlighted more because obviously the military aspect of this is very daunting to even think about. Now, people are saying that Trump is right on doing this because of the economic sabotage that China has been doing on U.S. corporations. But really, if you look at things, there's a lot of international globalist corporations out there, and there has been some intellectual stealing by some, Chinese espionage. It's really a tricky understanding of this because some people are saying that this is the supposed art of the deal, that Trump is playing tough, and I could understand some of that talk. But I think from the surface value and ultimately looking at this current geopolitical situation unfolding now, I don't think anyone's winning. I think more government money going into hands from average people with tariffs, meaning higher taxes on things coming in and out of this country, is not good. And ultimately doesn't really protect anyone, especially if you look at automation and artificial intelligence taking over everyone's jobs with the corporatocracy. So I don't think the corporations need to be protected, but obviously this is going to have a severe effect on a lot of people, and a lot of people expect it to get worse, especially people who are looking at the situation from a kind of economic point of view. But also the military aspect is something that should be talked about a little bit more, as we just saw this week as well. 2 U.S. destroyers sail towards Taiwan. And this is the first time that this happened since 2007. It's a huge, big military move for the United States. Obviously, there's going to be more tough talk between these two countries, but Taiwan is a huge area of conflict between China and the United States. China does not like Taiwan. China does very aggressive military drills around Taiwan, and the United States is only doubling down with their military prowess with more saber rattling by sending 2 U.S. destroyers to Taiwan just recently within the last few days. There's even on Zero Hedge a very interesting article that I'm going to share in the comment section with everyone. I'm sending that over right now into the main chat room that we're doing this video on youtube.com/WeAreChange, which of course we're going to be answering your comments and super chats, of course. But I just sent you guys an article that says that there's a leaked Chinese memo working to Sidious trap with U.S. War is unavoidable. Now, if you don't know what Sidious is, don't worry, I didn't know too. I had to Google it. It is a reference to when a rising power causes fear in an established power, which escalates towards war. Sidious wrote, "What made war inevitable was the growth of Athenian power and the fear which this caused in Sparta." So this is something that should be talked about more in length, definitely researched more in length. We've been talking about the topic of China for a very long time because it's an issue that is not going to go away anytime soon. China, economically and militarily, is rising in power, of course, threatening the hegemony of the United States. And historically speaking, not always, but historically speaking, when there is an emerging power threatening the hegemony of the power, the main power, the United States, usually that ends up in war. And then no one really wins from that end, as well as the trade wars. That's my 2 cents on it. Jason, what do you think?
No, I think these articles are actually very correct. I hope that we don't get into a hot war, but like you just talked about, there's some real saber rattling going on. We're seeing destroyers go where they haven't gone in over a decade. And I know you brought up artificial intelligence and automation earlier, and that's where this is headed. You know, Putin, I think, is correct. Those that master that first, and if it's China, it very well could be, will be the dominant global power from there on out. So knowing, these neocons, these war hawks, they don't know another language other than war when their back is pinned against a wall. They know nothing else. So, I pray it never gets to that, because China's a big place. That would be the first place that we got into a global conflict where I think that we would be outnumbered by citizens 4-1. 4-1, yeah. Luke? Think about that. That's not a war where all of a sudden troops are on mainland China and we're setting up shop after, shock and awe. That is forget about it. So, we talk about Iran sometimes, and I can't even imagine that conflict popping off militarily. This is next level, bro. This would be next level. Go ahead.
Well, the next wars are definitely going to be fought not with humans, but with machines and technology, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence, which China is working furiously on and developing artificial intelligence. It was Vladimir Putin who did publicly on the world say, the country that first masters artificial intelligence will be able to control the entire world, because these capabilities and technological advancements are far superior than obviously the human mind. And we have to understand here, this is pretty serious, especially with human rights having a backseat in China. And of course, we have to always remember how kind of China rose out of its current state, predominantly from famine, predominantly from communism, now in a kind of quasi-capitalist communism state. It was predominantly from the works of people like David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger that wheeled and dealed and worked out specific negotiations with China and helped them rise to the economic power that they are right now. So that's something to worry about. Another thing to really worry about is what's happening over in North Korea, because as we know, the Chinese also have a huge influence on North Korea. And as we're seeing this article, that there is diplomatic disconnect with North Korea on Saturday, accusing the United States of a, quote, gangster-like mindset in high-level negotiations that happened recently over denuclearization. And it's a little bit of a different perspective that was given to us by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who called the talks, quote, productive. So we're getting two conflicting reports there. And obviously you have to understand, Kim.com made this point, and I agree with him. It is China who has a huge influence on North Korea that is leading these talks and also will determine what North Korea does with the United States. Since North Korea needs to depend on China for its survival, China knows that. And Kim.com made a good point saying that Xi Jinping will decide what's going to happen in North Korea, not Trump or Kim Jong-un. With U.S. trade wars expanding, Xi Jinping may want to embarrass Trump on the world stage. There may be never a deal with North Korea. Interesting times. We also saw, because of tough foreign policy from the United States, because of a lot of tough talk and a lot of tough actions from Donald Trump, one of which being ending the Iran nuclear deal, that because of this, we're seeing not only Russia, not only the European Union, but also, of course, China get closer economically and also militarily with Iran. So that is also an emerging critical point that the United States will have to deal with. And obviously, there's still tensions inside of Syria unfolding, but those are winding down. As we know, the Chinese and Russians have been supporting Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, and the United States has been mainly supporting the rebel groups and the people fighting the Syrian government in that country. And it looks like rebels in the southern Syria district have reached a deal to end some of the violence. We're seeing a lot of dramatic moves. People are saying that the U.S.-Kurdish alliance will be over soon. And, of course, there's also, geopolitically, if you look at the whole landscape, you could see the mapping of who's on whose side, especially with Israel coming out recently, finding out that they're arming Ukrainians, blatant neo-Nazi militia. That's happening there, which, of course, is fighting the Russians. And all of this will be most likely determined on July 16th, just a few days from now, over a week from now, where Vladimir Putin will be meeting with Donald Trump. And I expect a lot of those issues when it comes to the future of Syria, when it comes to if there will be a potential conflict with Iran, to be dealt with and to be finished and finally over and finally decided when this very important meeting happens in Helsinki in just a few days from now. So this is going to be a very, very important meeting. As we reported to you a couple weeks ago, one of the major moves that has won Vladimir Putin's attention with Donald Trump was the fact that Vladimir Putin told the Iranian forces to leave the Syrian territory and not fight alongside the Syrians. He did that. This was a deal supposedly made with Israel. Israel promised that they would get Trump and Putin closer. And after this, we're seeing this meeting come to a head. And of course, a lot of these meetings will happen. But with tensions rising with China, it's only intelligent for the United States to decrease the tensions that they have with Russia. It's one of the only ways that they potentially will be able to sustain themselves, since China and Russia also are very economically and militarily tied in together and usually fall along the same lines when it comes to their effective foreign policy and who they back and who they do not support. For China, it is mainly economical. For Russia, it's, of course, a bigger, grander chessboard that they're playing. And with the United States, it's a little bit of a confusing paradox, since we're seeing so many aggressive moves made by Donald Trump, and the repercussions of that don't work out for the U.S.'s favor, don't work out well for the United States. So that's my little rant. Anything you want to add or talk about specifically about those specific issues, Jason?
Yeah, actually I want to bring it all the way back to Kim.com, because Kim.com is correct that China is leading the North Korean peace process. He's the one inviting them. He's the one getting him, I would say, more westernized, much like China was in the 1980s, being drawn into kind of Western traditions of the United States, right? He went off on Trump on the latest Unity 4J, that is Unity for Julian Assange livecast. If people don't know what that is, that's a bunch of intellectual speakers, internet personalities that support Assange doing a live broadcast. He did it with Cassandra Fairbanks. And he was extremely critical of Trump. He called him a grab him by the you-know-what. He said he was a chicken S. He said that he was crapping, in another word, all over his people by not, allowing Assange asylum, getting Assange out. He talked about his own copyright case, and he basically said he has now been absorbed by the deep state, and he's done nothing. And, he's like, he doesn't get it. These guys hate you, and you think if you play ball with them that, they're not going to get you. He thinks he's going to get impeached. Kim.com, smart guy. And I think essentially he's correct when we get to foreign policy, Luke. Trump has been completely absorbed by the deep state. Remember, one of the big things that his base liked about him was no more foreign entanglements. We're getting out of there. We got no business in there. What are we doing starting a war with Syria, Obama? Well, what are you doing bombing Syria then, Mr. Trump? So he told it like it is. And and he talked about how rabid the people that defend Trump no matter what are, which I thought was also great. He's like, as soon as I put a negative tweet about the guy, the Trump bots are all over me. And I just think that he needs to take a step back. I think it's a good move. I know in the media they've been reporting that he's no longer listening to James Mad Dog Mattis. Good move. Don't want to listen to the Mad Dog. But is that going to be enough? Look who he's surrounded himself with, Luke. I mean, that's my take on this situation.
What's really fascinating is that all the presidents that I could remember, and even before, whether it's Trump, whether it's Obama, whether it's George W. Bush, all of them, when they were campaigning, have always promised one thing: non-interventionalism, no expansion of new wars. And what does every single freaking president do? They expand the wars, they expand the conflicts, and Donald Trump is no different. What's fascinating about this is that when it comes to all the promises that they made with foreign policy, as soon as they're elected president, like a switch goes off. It's like, oh yeah, bring in Henry Kissinger, bring in John Bolton, bring in the top neoconservative, bloodthirsty warhawks who have no sympathy, soul, or empathy at all in their blood, and let them decide what's going to happen with the United States. There's supposedly rumblings that he's not talking to Mad Dog Mathis, but ultimately, we will see if that is true from the meeting that's going to happen with Putin on July 16th, which, of course, we're going to be following very closely. And you could expect all the latest news reports to come out on this video channel as soon as it happens. But again, as soon as the president's elected, bam, no one's talking about foreign policy. The media is not talking about it. Weird people with facial hair who supposedly are very aggressive and run alternative media sites don't talk about the foreign policy at all. No one's talking about the foreign policy. And this is something that is affecting the majority of people all over the entire world, and it's something that needs to be talked about. What's happening now with China needs to be talked about. This will affect us. It's already affecting us with the trade war. It's important to understand how this is happening, why this is happening, because the first way to really prevent all the problems in this world is to fully understand them, and no one's talking about this. They're not really that much of exciting topics like Bike Lock Billy or Antifa or Kekistani Craig or whoever the hell they are. But it's something that does have an effect and something that we're going to continue to talk about on this YouTube channel. When it comes to domestic policy, you could of course, argue different things, but it's fascinating. As soon as the president comes into office, no one's talking about the foreign policy. Barely any significant talk from either the left, which used to be anti-war. Now they're all obsessing and fomenting about Russia for some reason, when Donald Trump is making aggressive foreign policy moves against Russia. But now, geopolitically, looking at the greater picture, it looks like the United States realizes that China is more of a formidable threat than it was before, that China is not going to back down from tariffs on their country. They're responding with more tariffs. They're responding with more aggressive military moves with the United States, also increasing their aggressive military moves. Both countries need to depend on each other because if one falls, the other will fall. But when we look at things economically, they are both tied in together, but also tied in together with huge bubbles and economic farce and crap that is artificially inflated economic numbers. In China, it's the real estate bubble predominantly. In the United States, it's too many bubbles to even mention now. But when you look at the economics of China and the United States, it's all based on a lie. It's all flawed. It's all waiting to just be popped. And as soon as one of those bubbles pops, it's not going to be good for anyone.
No, Luke, it's not. And
Oh, people are talking about Q. People are talking about Q in the chat room.
I can't.
Q is right. Q's right.
Q's right about what? What is Q right about? I think that WikiLeaks, again, an organization that's never put out false documentation, is correct when they call Q basically built for people that like horoscopes. If you're reading your horoscope and you believe that something magical is going to happen today because the moon is in a certain place, I'm sorry, good for you. It's fun. I get it. I know. And now I'm going to get really ripped on somewhere in the comments. But come on, man. We deal in facts. And
is that a guitar? Is that a guitar that you played?
That was the little the coil on the microphone. The coil that holds up the my hand hit it. I'm getting older. I don't have control over my own body anymore, Luke. That's why I'm on the carnivore diet.
I want to talk about that later on.
I know you want to talk about that so badly. Oh, I know you can't wait. But yeah, look, again, we have a guy that made a lot of promises, that talked about, a better foreign policy for the people, something that you and I could have gotten behind, back in 2004, 5 when we met, right? Sounded about right. And that's when a lot of the left people were on our sides. You know what I'm saying? That's when they were like, you know what? This is right. And all of a sudden, as soon as Barack Obama got in, everything was fine with, keeping the war going in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we love Guantanamo Bay. And then Trump steps in, keeps all those same policies, Luke, and then starts, pardoning people like Scooter Libby. Like, Scooter Libby was one of the few people that went to jail that should have during that administration. I mean, Cheney should be rotting away in a third world style prison with Donald Rumsfeld as his cellmate and Paul Wolfowitz across the hall. Okay, that's the truth.
With Hillary Clinton in there.
Well, I mean, Clinton at that point, she'd probably done some bad things. I don't know if she deserved it by then, but by the end of the Barack Obama administration, are you kidding me? And by the way, these people are such criminals that, back when she was the wife of a governor in a high level law firm with people like Webb Hubbell, Chelsea Clinton's father, and Vince Foster.
Nice little drop there.
Well, I'm just saying. Vince Foster, magically dies in the woods of a gunshot wound. I mean, those are the powerful people she was with then. So, yes, on that level, you're a bad person. You're like season 2 of what's the show with Kevin
House of Cards.
Yeah, season 2 of House of Cards. We're talking about a season that's never going to be made when you talk about the Bush administration, okay? And the continuation of the Barack Obama. They're finishing it up with one more season with Claire. Unless they decide to carpet bomb the entire Middle East and kill 6 million plus civilians, can't compare. Can't compare, brother.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a point here before we move on and talk about the story for each day of the week here, which Jason, you're going to bring up after this, is that it's very hard trying to be impartial and trying to be a part of journalism these days because you could fall for many traps. Because if we start talking about Q and all the speculations and all the conspiracy theories, people would love it and eat it up. But it would be disingenuous for me to do that and to sell people down a river that has actually no evidence, proof, or facts behind it that actually matter and will affect you. So people are either going on the Q train and running with the speculations and getting large numbers because of just being out there with outlandish conspiracy theories. And then there's people who play into the left-right dichotomy who use divide and conquer techniques in order to galvanize a bigger audience, because if they have one side hating you, they get a reaction, they have another side protecting you, and they play on that side. And it's hard to stay objective because, for, honestly speaking, the left and right are full of crap. So the political discourse these days, I think, is more toxic than it ever has. And I think people realize that. And that's why people are just tuning out of politics. And they're like, we're just so sick of the bull crap and hooey that all these people are spewing, trying to push an agenda, trying to push and manipulate our feelings and emotions in order to, do the bidding of certain individuals. So we have to understand, with the Hegelian dialectic being, ramped up more than it ever has been, it's not easy being independent media, not LARPing about Q, not LARPing on the left side or the right side, but really trying to do an honest show here and really tell you guys from our perspective, from our research, hey, this is actually happening and this actually matters and this actually is something that people should talk about and should know about. But that's just my perspective on it. Jason?
No, and with that, Luke, and us being an independent news organization, I'd like to invite everybody to go check out the WeAreChange clothing store at teespring.com/store/WeAreChange. You can see it right here. We got a bunch of different styles. It helps support us. Super chats, if they're not disabled right now, also help support us, and we always answer super chats. They got disabled oddly in the middle of our program last week. I hope that's not a thing. But yes, without independent media, who's talking about these issues, Luke? Nobody. Without Jimmy Dore, WeAreChange, who's legitimately speaking about these issues without trying to foment fear?
Jimmy Dore does call out the neoliberal corporatists, but he is also on the left.
True.
Corbett, I would say is somewhat up there and doing really good work. James Corbett of the Corbett Report, but Jimmy Dore does have his bias.
It's true. It's true. He has some bias, but he's also able to get mid-level politicians to do his show and grill them about real issues. At least get them on the record. I would say this. I would say that obviously I don't agree with anybody on everything. I don't think we should. I think Corbett talks about that. There should be disagreements. Me and you, we disagree on a bunch. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, the stuff that we disagree about is so minuscule outside of carpet bombs, police state tactics, surveillance, privacy, freedom of speech issues that we would hope that both the quote unquote left and right could agree upon. That are not left and right issues, Luke. They're wrong and right issues.
Yeah, the NeoCons and the neoliberals are buttholes. Let's stop catering and trying to push their agenda and actually wake up to the real control grid that's happening with people screwing us over. And no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to talk about the effects that are actually reaching us, touching us every single day and having an effect on our daily lives. No, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Kim Kardashian. Let's talk about a Kakistani or a stupid Antifa person, which again just dilutes the water and just they call it the swamp, and the swamp is I would say dirtier than ever. But let's move forward. Let's talk about some of the articles that you picked this week for every day of the week, and let's start off with Monday, Jason.
Yeah, so brain zaps could control sex pests. Offenders are half as likely to physically assault victims after quote unquote treatment study finds, and we're talking about electroshock treatment, among others. Now, here's my problem with this. Number one, Luke, obviously, I am no fan of pedophilia. I'm no fan of child abusers. I think that they need very, very harsh prison sentences. Okay, number one, that's to start. But using them as guinea pigs for basically mind control is a little bit sketchy to me. I don't, because think about it. What if you're wrongly convicted, or this extends beyond brain zaps? It's very Clockwork Orange. All I could think of was Alex sitting in that chair with his eyes peeled open with drops going as Beethoven's Ninth is played in the back, and he's watching videos of Nazis raping and killing people. And I'm not saying that that's what this was, but I'm saying that we both know. I mean, again, you look at the NXIVM cult, and they were showing crazy videos to people and taping their reaction. They were doing mind control experiments on them. And to me, it's a slippery slope, but this one is not so slippery. I don't think that we should be doing this type of experimentation or quote-unquote treatment to even sex offenders. I think it's dangerous.
It's coming in 2025, Jason. That's my prediction. Everyone's going to have a brain chip, and everyone's going to be zapped by the government to not be a thought criminal. This is interesting because this is something that people put on their heads and sends off electromagnetic currents to their prefrontal cortex, and it supposedly reduces a person's intention to commit a violent act. Now, obviously, these are private studies, but of course, governments are going to try to get their hands on this and use this in very bad ways. So it is a slippery slope. It definitely have to worry about that. If it, and they're using it in a very smart PR move against the worst people in our society, pedos. Everyone wants to see pedos stopped and pedos just completely eviscerated where they don't hurt or attack anyone. So this is a very smart PR thing that they're doing. But obviously the implications of this are very terrifying with how much control governments usually want from its citizenry and the historical history of just how governments have used total control against its own people to clear them out and take care of them. We also got a super chat that I think would be important to answer, and this one's by Happy Zorro, and Happy Zorro is asking, Groovy, super chat's still working? Yes, I was wondering, Happy Zorro, if super chats were working, and they are. He also says, I'm with you on Patreon too. Can you give me a scoop on recent Syria and Ukraine news? Now, we talked about Syria a little bit earlier in this broadcast, but most importantly, it looks like there is peace inside of the southern Syria region. We saw just a few days ago, about a week ago, that there was negotiations with the FSA, the Free Syrian Army, saying that they were negotiating with Russian officials regarding what to do with the southern Syrian territory. This is the same Syrian territory, of course, that is close to Israel, that a lot of the jihadists have been using as a safe haven, that Israel has been attacking Syrian government forces that have tried to attack them because Israel does not want the Syrian military, which previously had the Iranian military with them, alongside its border. But now it looks like there has been a peace deal reached within the rebel groups and the Russians, and it looks like that territory will be reclaimed back to the Syrian government. As far as the northern region of Syria, it looks like the United States is effectively soon going to end their alliance with the Kurds, which of course could mean a bigger incursion by Turkey. As we know, Turkey and the Kurds have been at a war for many years now. Turkey does not like the Kurds. Turkey has already invaded a part of Syria where the Kurds were, have taken over that territory away from the Syrian government. And the only thing that has prevented Turkey from fully attacking the Syrian state is the fact that the U.S. bases, the U.S. forces, are directly embedded with the Syrian Kurd forces that, of course, are another independent rebel group in that entire region. As far as Ukraine, earlier we talked about how there's Israel that is arming and selling weapons to militias who are linked to neo-Nazis inside of Ukraine. This, of course, hurts the relations between Israel and Russia. As we know, Donald Trump has also armed the Ukrainian military, and this is a major move since there is still, even today, even within the last few weeks, there's still tensions between Ukrainian rebels and the Russian government, and of course the pro-Russian militants inside of that country. So expect a lot of this to be dealt with. Expect a lot of major decisions to come down on July 16th, because geopolitically, the United States and Russia have been at odds and have little proxy wars all throughout the world. And either they're going to escalate on grand proportions or they're going to calm down. Looking at the current situation unfolding between Russia and between the United States and China, I think they will most likely calm down. So thank you so much for your super chat. Happy Zorro. Jason, do you want to say anything about that, or do you want to move on to Tuesday's story?
No, let's move on to Tuesday's story, since it's really a plethora of stories. We've got three things. I mean, you touched on one of these. RIP privacy. Thousands of apps are now recording your phone screen without your permission. You know, this is just another one of the things that you agree to in passing with these terms of services, using social media and using apps or using certain devices. People don't even realize it. And I think that this is illustrated more and more with the fact that Wall Street Journal is reporting tech's dirty secret. The app developers are sifting through your Gmail. Of course they are. If you think that there's anything on the web, Luke, I mean anything at all that is private, it is not. This broadcast, obviously this is a public broadcast, but us talking on Skype before, that's somewhere, okay? That's logged somewhere, and they are recording metadata. They are taking all of this stuff, and you know, we did that story last week where we talked about the quote-unquote hidden in plain sight NSA bases, the AT&T offices, where again reported back in the late 90s they were siphoning off all digital information to the NSA at once, where they store that information in bulk. And both of these things intertwine into good old Facebook. I don't know why people are trusting Facebook still. I don't get it, Luke. You know, good old Facebook. Well, they just patented a system that can use your phone's mic to monitor your TV habits. Now, this will actually rival what is already used, Luke. It's called Alfonso software, okay? Now, that's what they're not telling you about this stuff, is that it's already around, okay? It's called ACR software, and instead of just recording, see, this is how they get away with it. It's a trick. It's a nice little patent. They're not recording your conversation in real time. They're using sonar technology, Luke, to figure out what's being said, and then they're logging that TV habit so that they can better advertise to you and what you buy. So this is spying on you and your whole family, and now Facebook has a nice little patent. So again, we've known for some time that Facebook is not honest, but we should understand that no digital company is, and it wouldn't matter if they were, because once it goes over the digital airwaves, Luke, somebody has it somewhere in this national security state that we live in. You know, I just did that video on 5G. It's about to get worse. It's about to get real time. But we already live in a track, trace, and database society. Once 5G is globally implemented, it will be in real time, Luke.
Yeah, I really appreciated the job you did on that 5G documentary that we released on this channel this Friday. But we have to understand, in this new digital day and age, with applications that are supposedly free, when Facebook is supposedly free, when anything is free right now, you're the product. You're being sold. It even came out a few years ago. Basic flashlight apps that people downloaded on their old phones were pretty much spying on every single thing that was inside of your phone. So it's a little bit creepy. I mean, just imagine some of the things you look through, or some of the photos you take, some of the private photos you take. We all take some private photos now. And then third-party applications taking a screenshot of your phone. So it's just absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely bonkers, because we have no privacy left at all. This is terrifying. This is something that should scare the bejesus out of everyone, because the implications of this are daunting. Anyone questioning a corporation and authority, they're going to be targeted. We saw even Uber use customers' private information that they got through their app, through other permissions that people allowed to be on there, to track and go after and try to destroy the careers of journalists that were writing bad stories about Uber. This is an actual thing that is happening right now. So we have to understand it's not only government espionage that we have to worry about, with government going after people who threaten their authority and their power with information on every single aspect of a person's life, which we willingly give them for some convenience. It's not a convenience. It's your enslavement in the future that's happening right now. But it's also corporate. And if you're going against any corporation, or if a corporation wrongs you, or you have a position of power that could threaten the profit of a corporation, you could bet your bottom dollar that you could access their private information and use it against them. And this is something that's going to happen more and more and more. And you could get anyone's information. I had to hire a private third party to secure my data, because corporations and government sell your private information for pennies on the dollar. I could go online. You give me your first and last name, I could find out almost everything about you, your siblings, your family, your income, your arrest history, whatever I want, your phone number, your direct address. And I had to scrub that because I had crazy stalkers showing up to my house. I had people, seriously, I had people call my family, call my mom and dad and harass them about me. One of the stalkers was freaking calling my parents up and then like trying to stalk me through my parents. There's, New York Times and New York Post were like leaving voicemails. I have all these other media, especially a couple years ago. I had all these people trying to reach me out for interviews whenever we had like big videos and big confrontations, and they were always trying to get a comment from me. They stopped calling me and they started calling my family, being like, yeah, we need an interview with Luke Rudkowski. And I'm like, how the hell did you get my information? Well, they got my information through online just resources that are available to everyone. And I had to specifically go out of my way, pay a third party, and delete all of that. And I think I did it successfully, but who the hell knows if crazy stalker Susie is going to be out there again bothering me. Of course, her name wasn't Susie, but goodness, you don't understand the bullcrap. We need to respect our privacy. Our privacy is more vital and more important than ever, and this is something I'm thinking about doing a full comprehensive video on, just the amount of privacy that we have lost. If this is something that you think you would want to watch, let me know on my Twitter account, twitter.com/Luke WeAreChange. And if there's enough people hitting me up saying yes, make a privacy video, I will. But it honestly seems like a topic that no one cares about, and that's pretty damn scary. And one of the reasons I'm probably going to go to Uruguay or freaking Croatia or Cambodia or some of the hell out of here, where I don't have to deal with these problems and crazy stalker Susie showing up to my front door.
Well, Luke, I think that really brings us into the next story, and let's go to the super.
Wait! People are asking me, people, what third party do you use? I'm not telling you what third party I'm going to use, because that third party is going to get hacked. I don't even want to tell you what third party. I shouldn't even told you that I do a third party thing, because that makes people even one step closer to gaining your private information and receiving death threats before. My family received death threats before because of the work I did. It's something that people need to be more careful about. It's something I'm very careful about. And even if I tell you the company that I used, I become more vulnerable because I did that. And I don't want to do that. You can just research third parties that will protect your data on Google, and then you're more likely to find out that. So yeah.
All right. Well, we're really not done with this story, because there's one more that you actually sent me that wasn't part of this, but really intertwines with this. And with Steve's super chat, and thank you very much, Steve, what are the greatest concerns right now going on? I think that this digital police state that's being built is one of my biggest, this is my biggest domestic concern for real. And the fact that people don't understand. Cambridge Analytica was not the only thing going on. It was a very minuscule part. And now it's come out. You didn't see this in American media, barely in European media. Facebook gave 61 firms extended access to user data. And I think it's way more than 61. I think this is the tip of the iceberg. We're going to find out that really hundreds, if not thousands, of companies had extra use of people's data. Believe that hype. Well, these 61 firms, maybe they signed a contract with, Luke, but we know that if you click yes on an app, so much of that goes out the window. So much of what you think is being protected. And again, nothing's being protected from the NSA. These are airwaves. So this is my biggest concern. And now with 5G, you have a different kind of technology. If you watch this video, you have beamforming. It's much more concentrated. It's much quicker. It's wavelength. And if you know who Ross Day is, he's a guy that kind of worked with the United States and with Russia on mind control technology using beamforming and other microwaves. And this is back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And Luke, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the U.S. Embassy, I believe in, it might have been in Moscow, it might not, don't quote me, was actually beamed, microwaved by
Cuba.
the Russian government. No, by the Russian government.
There's a recent story coming out of Cuba of U.S. officials in Cuba getting blasted by a mysterious kind of wave that has affected them highly as well. Sorry, continue on with your story.
Yeah, well, they ended up, a lot of these people formed cancer. Kissinger actually had to sign a memo where they got, the disability type benefits they would for something like this. It's been speculated that the United States knew it was going on and they allowed it so that they could see what the results were. But it's scary not only that this technology exists, but that we are now moving forward in a society that's not only going to use this technology for things like autonomous cars and to track, trace, and database all of our devices at once, instantaneously, and use cloud computing and artificial intelligence to basically run our lives from there for us, but it's being brought to us in a technology we can't see with our own eyes, with different wavelengths that could possibly, put us to sleep or make us angry or irritable. Aside from the cancer concerns and all those other things out there, Luke, that's what I'm concerned about. A society that cannot get away from brainwashing.
Yeah, and it's like Star Trek with that little laser gun that they had. What was the nerd, the really white pasty looking dude in Star Trek?
Wesley,
yeah. Mark Zuckerberg looks almost exactly like Wesley from from Star Trek. It's just shocking. But to answer Steve's super chats, what are the greatest concerns right now going on? I would have to say the rise of artificial intelligence. And we have seen comments from Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook being like, oh, yeah, it's nothing. It's not a big deal. When he was talking to Elon Musk, who was warning him, saying artificial intelligence is a huge implication when we have entities that are smarter than us. And then Mark Zuckerberg's like, no big deal. But Facebook is developing artificial intelligence. And with the business practices that they have already committed, with how easy and lackadaisically they just give off and share your private information. Cambridge Analytica is nothing compared to what's really happening out there. Remember, Mark Zuckerberg said people are really dumb Fs for trusting him with all their private information, and we all are. See, this is how they get you. They're like, oh, we have this free thing. This is going to be so convenient. You could talk to your friends and you get stupid emojis and blah, 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 but just sign the term and services. Don't read the book that is the term of services, but just sign it. It's free. It's not free. We are the products. We are being treated like cattle with no respect at all, with no dignity at all, just being consumed by the corporate machine, sold to the top dollar, no matter what it is. Cambridge Analytica is just the beginning of it. And to answer your question, Steve, definitely artificial intelligence. Because imagine when this Star Trek geekazoid with his little laser weapons has something that is far superior than the human mind. And that's, this blood-sucking corporatist who only gives a damn about his bottom dollar. Imagine him with those capabilities, and that should be terrifying. We also got other super chats going on right now.
Luke, before we get there, I just want to point out, because you were talking about technology, artificial intelligence, just this week it became that Zuckerberg is the third in line, richest man in the world. Number 2 is Bill Gates. And number 1 is Jeff Bezos. And guess what they're all invested in? Not only technology, but artificial intelligence. And I'll let you read that next super chat.
Can you help me with the name here, Jason?
Since I can't read whatever that looks like,
I think it's
isn't that
Russian.
up your eyes, Ali?
It's
Right?
Russian.
Yeah, you should know that. I don't know it.
Left the
sir,
super chat.
I'd like to thank you. It's an interesting super chat. Should I read it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. I highly recommend Peter Zielhan's recent geopolitical lectures. Peter Zielhan was the co-founder of Stratfor and worked with the Clinton administration. If people don't know what Stratfor is, it's one of these pseudo-intelligence organizations, Kissinger Institute-esque, but it's a lot of former intelligence and law enforcement officials that you can hire privately. I believe it's based out of Austin, Texas as well. I'm pretty sure it's actually, if it's not Austin, it's close. So it's
I'm pretty sure they changed their name as well.
Did they move from Stratfor into something else? But you're seeing, like, this is what Fusion GPS was. You know, these are the private firms that nobody really talks about that do some pretty dirty work. They're the Cambridge Analyticas, Luke.
Well, Stratfor was caught with spying on activists for corporations. There was a group here, what was it, the Yes Men, that were doing fake press releases and fake news conferences, acting like they were heads of mega corporations and announcing that they would repay all the victims of their chemical spills and all the horrible things that a corporation did. And this, of course, hurt the stocks of major corporations. And Stratfor was hired to spy and to do espionage work on these group of activists that were essentially doing the good work for the corporations that screwed over other people with impunity because of the government allowing them to do so. And they were actually holding corporations accountable with whatever way you may think about that. I thought what they were doing was actually pretty brilliant and pretty smart. One of the things that they brought up was the Bhopal incident that happened that hurt a lot of people. So Stratfor is a very, very interesting corporation, to say the least, private intelligence corporation out there. I haven't heard of Peter Zichans. I don't know who that is, but I'm definitely going to look that up after this broadcast. We got another super chat by Antman5435, just for $2. Thank you so much for that, Antman. We also have one from Hadoop SD. Hadoop SD. About 5G, do you think the politicians and their families would not be affected by the radiations? I mean, they also walk on roads, go on vacations, right? I think that's a question for you, Jason, since you've been doing research on 5G and just released a short documentary on our YouTube channel about 5G.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. I just don't think they care. I think they're thinking about the money and power that it's going to bring them. I mean, a lot of these guys are sitting there sipping down 10 Diet Cokes a day. Guys like David Rockefeller lived to be 101 years old. Diet Coke a day, baby. I think that they feel like they're almost invincible. That they have.
Yeah. I mean, people say. Sorry to interrupt you. People say Donald Trump as well. Donald Trump is openly seen just eating McDonald's and Diet Coke all the time. There's people in the White House saying he has a Diet Coke addiction. Yeah, that's something that a woke person does not do, and that should give you a little bit of an understanding of where he's coming from.
Well, not just him, but the mindset of powerful people. You know, I get to see the best doctors. I'm in control of my own life. I don't think that they're looking at those health risks. In fact, if you watch the little mini doc we put out there, it's heavy on Tom Wheeler, who was the ex-head of the FCC that just pushed this right through. And you could see him talking about it with such glee and how they're not going to be testing it at all, and we're pushing this forward, and we're doing it. We're doing it, baby. This is the total controlled digital grid that I and others have been talking about for more than a decade. The people at the top that have the billions of dollars that is going to create new services for things like Verizon, AT&T, Spectrum, Time Warner, Comcast, the list goes on. They're thinking dollar bill, y'all, and we have to keep up. Okay, so they're not thinking about those health risks. They're thinking about maybe at some time we're going to have to cover some lawsuits later. You know, a lot of these guys are smoking cigarettes. You think they don't know what causes cancer, brother? That's kind of my 2 cents on the issue.
Well, yeah, money can't buy you everything, but these plutocrats do believe that money could buy everything, and that's just an asinine, crazy view of the world. And sadly, when it comes to egomania and just some of the psychopathic behaviors of some of these people, they don't give a damn. Most psychopaths per capita live in Washington, D.C. for a reason and around Washington, D.C. Because they're psychopaths. Psychopaths attract other psychopaths, and then they get into power, and then they just don't care. A lot of the people just don't give a damn. They like to convince themselves that they do, but when it comes to, looking at their bank accounts or having an effect maybe later down the line or possibly it happening, they're just like conveniently not exposing themselves to these facts. And that's a sad state of affairs. And that's psychotic behavior by psychopaths. Which are in Washington, D.C. All right, we got another super chat by Steve, and he says, the Internet of Things is being promised as a great thing. Think about the link between crypto and the Internet of Things. It's not as private as you think. Once this goes big, they can just stop you. Steve, you brought up a very important point, something that we've been talking about ever since the advent of cryptocurrencies. We've been talking about cryptocurrencies on this YouTube channel. How long, Jason? For way too long.
You've been talking about, I mean, we were talking about Bitcoin in private all the way back in 2010. Whether we were doing programs about it, we were getting pitched by everybody. Max Kaiser. If you knew Max Kaiser, you knew about Bitcoin.
Yeah, I didn't listen to him back in the day when it was still just a few dollars. But I was talking about with Max and other people about Bitcoin early on. And we always covered it from a very skeptical point of view because Bitcoin and the blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies are just a new wave of technological innovation. And with any technological innovation, it could be used for good or it could be used for bad. The internet could be used for good, it could be used for bad. Mostly it's porn. But regardless of that, with cryptocurrencies, we have to understand there is a potential, especially with governments creating more regulations, creating more control, and even going as far as to say that they're going to be creating their own currency, like we saw in Venezuela, like we saw Russia even talking about. It's clear that the blockchain cryptocurrency space will not go away and will be a major part of our lives. And that's why I think what we have been seeing in the cryptocurrency community space is a lot of bad news. It's a lot of government regulations. It's a lot of corporate people, Goldman Sachs, trying to bring it down. And I think it is down now. It's slowly going up within the last few days, but it is down now where these powerful entities could buy it up and could have more of a control with it. If you look at people who are mining the Bitcoin, they are ultimately the ones controlling Bitcoins and where the cryptocurrency space goes, especially when it comes to the original coin, Bitcoin. And already it's not a decentralized network when it comes to Bitcoin, but there are other cryptocurrencies out there that do value your privacy. But again, with quantum computing and artificial intelligence, that privacy is gone. The Internet of Things, in a general aspect of it, is heading in our lives. It's going to be a part of our existence. Trying to move away from it is becoming more and more difficult. And you bring up a good point. Cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, are not as private as you think. And it is something that people do need to be aware of, do need to know, and do need to look at alternative coins, whether it's Zcash, Dash, what else is Monero. There's a lot of other coins out there that do primarily focus on your privacy as an individual that I would recommend looking into and researching, since those coins are going to be more valuable than ever in the upcoming future. But also they're also going to be very vulnerable with the kind of technological advancements that we're even seeing Amazon trying to offer. We saw this. Jeff Bezos of Amazon is working with the government, trying to give them decrypting technology so the government could track cryptocurrency transactions. That's what Amazon and Jeff Bezos is doing. It's very convenient to use Amazon, but you shouldn't. You are literally funneling the beast. You are funneling one of the worst corporate giants out there. If the left wants to resurface themselves, they would make Amazon one of their key talking points. Not only is Jeff Bezos one of the richest men in this world, but He is working one-on-one with the government, with the CIA, with the Pentagon. He owns the Washington Post. He is selling artificial intelligence, facial recognition technology to local police departments and also ICE. He is working on selling decrypting technology so the government can know where cryptocurrencies are going. Amazon is one of the worst corporations, monsters out there that are being created because of this convenience. And this is something that, again, everyone needs to realize. Amazon will be taken over most aspects of our society. You look at the people who are working for Amazon right now, they're forced to pee in bottles. They're passing out. There's ambulances driving over to the Amazon huge headquarters and warehouses that they have because of the mistreatment of their workers. Everything is tightly controlled and regulated and timed, including bathroom breaks there. They're creating a control grid system where people who even work for Amazon have to be on government assistance, and the government is supporting this by giving them more contracts, by giving them incentives, especially earlier on when they were starting, and tax cuts to help them rise to the prominence that they are right now. And to me, especially with them working on artificial intelligence right now, they are up there in the things that threaten humanity the most, in my understanding. We also got more super chats. Do you want to move forward, or should we answer these, Jason?
Well,
or do you want to add something?
Let's go back to the Internet of Things really quickly, because this is Steve again. And Steve, thank you so much for the support and being part of the conversation. First of all, I want people to understand the Internet of Things is already here. It's not coming, okay? I worked for a data company called, it was an MSP, Managed Service Provider, called Directive, and we were talking about this 5-6 years ago. Okay, big data, analytics. What is the Internet of Things? Well, it's this cell phone right here. It's this smartwatch I have. It's the computer that I'm broadcasting out of it. Anything that is connected via an IP address is already part of this quote-unquote Internet of Things. Now, when big data gets collected, all this data gets put together, that's where they profile you. Right, Luke? That's how this works. Now, those profiles are already pretty accurate. The difference is, what's coming with 5G is this will be in real time. And then all of a sudden, your house is going to have a smart electric system. So your light bulbs will be talking to the Internet of Things. Your refrigerator, all electrical appliances will also start going through this thing. Okay, so with Steve's concern, I'm just going to read it word for word. This is something that we're already talking about. Imagine once cash is gone, you don't play by the rules, you can shop or travel. China's social points is the groundwork for the cashless society. And we talk about the social point system. We talk about it a lot. It's already implemented in China. By 2020, they want it with all of their 1.2 billion citizens. This should alarm people. And yes, listen, if you thought that your crypto world was, anonymous cash, it's not. Everything about it is not anonymous. The blockchain is forever, Luke. Okay, there is a digital record. Now, whether or not someone's going to be able to track that blockchain record to an IP or an account, that's another story. But the bottom line is that transaction is somewhere, and as we've seen before, people are good. And like you talked about with artificial intelligence, quantum computing, they could break the algorithm that all of these cryptos are based on once they go live, man. Once we actually hit a true quantum computer, a scalable one, it could all be over, Luke.
Well, there's some cryptocurrencies that are running in totally different aspects that can't be broken up as easily. There's other aspects that are supposedly quantum computing proof. So the crypto space is a very large space, and there are privacy coins that make it very hard to nearly impossible to crack. So that also people need to be aware of. But I definitely do understand Steve's concern. China is on the rise. They do have a social points credit system where already journalists who criticize the Chinese state are not allowed to travel on specific airplanes. They're not able to send their kids to good schools. They're not able to have good internet. They're not able to be in certain cities and certain institutions because they're just bad for the state. And they criticize the state with their journalism. So this is already a very dystopian future. And we have seen countries all around the world stop their decry of the human rights violations that happen in China ever since China is becoming more economically engaged in the entire globe. And this is something to extremely worry about. We got another super chat by Avatash who says Amazon is behind QAnon. Look it up. What's your thoughts on that theory? Probably.
And Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is behind Santa Claus.
Technically, on the little thing he has.
Exactly. Exactly. That's my point.
Well, it would be interesting if artificial intelligence already exists and it's creating LARP accounts to distract all of us with useless nonsense in order so no one talks about their rise of power. It's like, hey, let's let them stop criticizing Amazon. Let them talk about QAnon. Let's make up this QAnon thing. It could be a possibility that it could be a psyop used by special interests so people don't talk about the actual issues that are affecting us, which, we've seen a lot of that in the conspiracy community. People just make up the most craziest things in order to get attention, in order to get clicks, but also to divert people from the real issues and at the same time make anyone questioning a related topic sound extremely crazy. So, we've seen a lot of disinformation. Even Cass Sunstein, a man that I personally confronted one-on-one who was a part of Barack Obama's administration, wrote papers specifically detailing how the government must infiltrate 9/11 truth movements on the internet and in real life, and to disrupt them and to cause chaos within their groups and to cause division within their groups to make sure that they can't be effective getting their message out. And the psychological operations, the psyops that were run on the 9/11 truth movement were very, very effective, because on one side you had family members, you had rescue workers, you had survivors of the attack with government officials, with government whistleblowers coming out and saying, hey guys, we need to investigate things more. This happened and this happened. Here's the facts. You need to look at this. And then they just brought out all the crazies being like, oh man, it was the space beam aliens that took down the towers, and George W. Bush is this and that. And I'm like, well, like what? Like stop it. And they were effectively able to discredit a mass movement of people with either just totally censoring us, even when we had thousands of people down at Ground Zero during one of the anniversaries, all wearing black T-shirts, or they were just mocking us by picking the craziest person that they could to represent the movement and giving the people this view that this is anyone who questions the official version of events that happened on 9/11. So yeah, Jason, you were a part of that. You saw all of that happening. You want to go to the next super chat?
Yeah, yeah. I guess
I'll do it. I'll do it.
I'll do it. I'll read it off to you. No, we're doing it. We're doing it. Do you think Alex Jones has sold out on many core issues? And, well, obviously, Luke, I've got to come clean. I got to tell you, my man, I thought the Democrats were going to cut the heads off of babies and drink their blood this July 4th, kick off the Civil War. We did a live broadcast. It didn't happen. I don't know what to say, but I'm that's about as far as I'm going to go on it. What's that?
Did you have the chili balls?
Well, I got so sick about it, I couldn't even eat a bowl of chili, Luke. I had to have a couple strip steaks. Easier to go down. I needed some red blood for my red-blooded American fourth. But listen, obviously you see where we're at. On issues that we don't agree with Trump on. We're not just going to have some marathon broadcast and then when we get stabbed in the back with 70-plus missiles, have a fit of rage and then backtrack everything. And, one of the stories we put out this week was the protester who was right in front of Donald Trump with a picture of Jeffrey Epstein, and the entire media made it about his man bun and his appearance and the Trump insults. And usually, Luke, when Trump insults somebody, the media makes a Little Rocket Man, and they go after Trump for doing so. Instead, this time, he went after somebody. You live with your mother, sweetheart. Go back to your mommy, sweetheart. That's what they were. They were ganging up against the protester, and many of them didn't even discuss what the subject matter was. And then we put out an interview. We've tracked these protesters down. You didn't hear about any of this on InfoWars, not on any even the side programs. We can't talk about it. And why not? There's a real relationship there. No one's saying that Trump is a pedophile, but to act like there wasn't a lawsuit with a 13-year-old girl naming him an Epstein that just kind of went away and nobody explained, well, that's a lie. That did happen. And to say they didn't ride on each other's planes, well, they did ride on each other's planes. We show the documentation for that. We show him in the little black book. So we're about right and wrong here. And there were some people in the comments section that were brutal. There were people earlier in the live stream that brought up that video. But I'm going to keep trying to do what I feel is right. And you're always going to hear my opinion, and it's not going to be made by some sponsor or whether I think I'm going to get more power or more money or more subscribers by taking a certain viewpoint. I'm not going to change, man. I'm sorry. I don't have that hunger and thirst for notoriety and power, and that's how I feel about it, Luke.
Yeah, and even though me and you, Jason, disagree on many different topics, I still, want you to kind of express yourself. We still have different debates. If we disagree about something, we actually talk about it. And I'm not trying to tell you, no, you can't talk about this. It doesn't go along with the agenda that we're trying to push here. But to me, to answer Steve's question, yes. I believe if you see someone have their true principles just flipped 180 degrees because of a political election, because someone was on their show, you have to understand that this man is not dumb. He's smart. He's intelligent. He knows what he's doing. And when you say things like actors have died because they're going to come out for Donald Trump, when you say there's going to be a civil war, and before that it was even a race war, you're saying things that are hyperbolic that will get you media attention. And he's smart in a way. He calculates things, but ultimately it leaves a very bad taste in everyone's mouth, and it discredits everyone else in this entire movement because it's not true. It's hyperbolic. And sadly, I would have to say that ego and money has gotten the best of that person. I had personal relations that turned out really bad that I won't get into. But it is, kind of just mind-blowing seeing his positions change 180 degrees. And then what kind of principles are those? And those aren't any morals and principles that you should stand on if you're willing to compromise them because of power, because of money. And in this game, if you are more partisan, you get more attention. You become more hyperbolic, people will all talk about you. And that's what he does, and that's something I disagree with, and that's something I have a different opinion on. But that's just my 2 cents, my own personal side of the story. We should probably move on and talk about the Las Vegas shooting, since we have more information on that, Jason, coming up also this week. What was that, Wednesday or Tuesday?
I'm not sure. That might have been I think this is either Wednesday or Thursday that run. I think it's Wednesday, but listen, this is a big story, and no one talked about it, and it wasn't really about the quote-unquote Las Vegas shooting, if you will. It is about the fact that his brother, the shooter's brother, was arrested for child pornography shortly after the shooting, okay? And it was a big deal. Like, they found some pretty disturbing things there, Luke. And there are other people that have done a lot of research about the Paddocks and where he got his money and how, his wife was in Thailand at this point and what they think happened. But the fact that this was thrown out of court because the main witness, I think it's Hector Cruz, I believe, was in El Salvador. And this is it, man. This is the one mainstream media story you're going to see about this. Not covered in the United States. This was an exclusive by the Daily Mail. And look, man, it looks like his brother right here. That's Stephen Paddock's brother. Looks a lot like an older version of Stephen Paddock, if you will. Was into some pretty crazy things, and he had lawyers. He had money. Remember, both of Paddock's brothers had money from whatever he was doing. All those weapons, all that tannerite. Something else was going on, and this stinks to high hell. Even an open secret. Yeah. I tweeted this out to him. And they immediately said thank you. They never retweet me, but they tweeted out the story afterwards. And the bottom line is this needs to be investigated more, a lot more, because we still haven't been told the truth about the Vegas shooting, and we haven't been told the truth of who Paddock was and what was actually happening.
Yeah, there was actually also a video released of police officers waiting in the staircase as the Las Vegas shooting was happening that was also released that just is just shocking to see because of so many people that were casualties in this horrible incident and attack. And it's definitely the more and more details are coming out, the more dirtier and dirtier it looks, especially with this latest story. Of course, people speculate about the shooter's motives, especially with all the airplanes he had and all the travels he did. If he was supposedly just a retired gambler, none of this totally adds up, and the state has been very hush about it. The media has been very hush about it. The story went away very quickly, and there's definitely a lot more to the story than we're being told. That does need to be investigated, and obviously people will connect their own dots. Some people are saying larger elite kind of pedal ring. That's some of the theories that are coming out of this, but ultimately what's happening here definitely does not fit the bill. Definitely looking at it aesthetically does not make sense with why the shooting happened and how it happened in the first place, especially with the new video that just came out of police officers just kind of waiting by as this atrocity happened. What's the next story?
Well, this one's a tough one, and Ed Schultz died this week. Veteran broadcaster, a guy that I didn't agree with all the time. Luke, I don't think that, again, you can agree with everybody all the time, but shortly after he did a pretty startling piece about the bailouts and how 8 billion, no, it's like $25 trillion. It's like, he laid out the real numbers, and I was like, whoa, blown away. He didn't have his job much longer, and the media refuses to talk about the good work that Ed Schultz did. This is crazy, and this is CNN, lefty media here. First of all, look how short his obituary is. Look at that right there. 4 or 5 paragraphs, maybe 6, if you count that a paragraph right there. That's pretty embarrassing. Ed Schultz was in the media business 40 plus years. He did some pretty striking work, and I'm just gonna read it and see how far it takes before he's a Russian spy. Okay. Ed Schultz, the liberal firebrand former MSNBC host, who was most recently anchored a show for Russian-funded media, couldn't even get the first sentence out. Russian-funded media organization, died on Thursday. He was 64. Schultz's death was confirmed by RT America, the Russian-funded media outlet where he hosted News with Ed. So right there, literally in the first 2 sentences of a man's death who spent less than 3 years at this news organization, Luke, Russian-funded media, the big Russian scare is still on. We at RT are sad to announce the passing of Edward Andrew Schultz, the network said in a statement. Ed Schultz passed quietly earlier this morning, July 5th, in his home in Washington, D.C. The announcement comes as a shock to all of us here at RT America. WDay TV, where Schultz once had worked as a sports director, reported that Schultz died of natural causes. A longtime resident of Minnesota, Schultz distinguished himself from the liberal pundits with his gruff, blue-collar style. His broadcast career took off with a radio show in Fargo, North Dakota, but rose to national prominence on MSNBC, where he hosted the show for 6 years until it was canceled in 2015. Now, here's where it comes. Just the jabs, baby. Just, we're going to get you, Schultz. You like to come against the establishment, Schultz. Schultz was hired by the network. What?
Is that a hawk? Did you let a bird loose or something? What is that?
It's ridiculous. I feel bad for this man. Not that I need good obituaries when I go, but I hope it's not conspiracy loon and Russian agent Jason Bermas, who might as well have been at the teat of Putin his whole life. I mean, come on, man. This is crazy. Crazy.
Well, I met Ed Schultz a few times. I didn't know him personally. It was more of a hi-bye thing. But, what do you expect from the mainstream media when they're just neoliberal corporatist whores who are just being used and abused by big money? That's what mainstream media is, and that's what Ed Schultz, most importantly, exposed. I disagreed with him on some issues. He was mainly a progressive union kind of guy. But one of the things that sticks out about his memory and who he was as a human being was the very fact that he was fired from MSNBC for not doing what he was told. He even spoke out about this later, but he said the major contention that MSNBC had with him when he was on MSNBC was the fact that he talked about the TPP, which he was one of the few anchors on the mainstream media that actually talked about the TPP, which most likely got him into a lot of trouble. And now also Bernie Sanders. And he talks about in this next clip that we're going to play for you, pretty much how MSNBC is in bed and how he had more editorial freedom at Russia Today, which is, Russian state funded. They don't have to keep bringing it up all the time. He got more freedom there than he ever did when it came to being on MSNBC, with even MSNBC executives coming to him and telling him, no, you can't lead that Bernie Sanders is running for president, obviously exposing the true in that MSNBC had with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to play this clip. The audio may be a little bit low, but I want to remind people that this is actually of a 48-minute podcast he did with somebody in the National Journal, but this is his Bernie Sanders story.
For the nomination of the Democratic Party in Burlington, Vermont, I was the only cable host between Fox, MSNBC, and CNN that was there live to cover it. Now, there were live cameras there, but we had coordinated with the Sanders campaign that at 5 o'clock he was going to make his announcement, and we were going to cover this on the Ed Show. I go to Bernie Sanders' house that afternoon, an interview in the backyard, about a 15-minute interview. The grandkids are running around. It's a big day for the Sanders family. He's going to announce that he's running for president. We're going to carry it live later on in the day, and we're going to run this one-on-one tape with Bernie. 3,000 people are there on Lake Champlain. It's 5 minutes to air, and I get a phone call from Phil Griffin. You're not covering this. I said, Phil, Bernie Sanders is announcing he's running for president. He's going to be president. I don't care. You're not covering this. And it got rather contentious. And I don't, now you're asking me for opinion. I'm giving you fact right now about.
And we're just going to stop it right there because I don't want to get into any kind of opinions. But that's what happened, Luke. He was told not to cover it after going to Bernie Sanders' own home, spending time with his family. You're not allowed to cover that Bernie is actually going to announce his presidency run.
Yeah, obviously clear pro-Hillary Clinton bias from these unhinged lunatics. When you look at Rachel Maddow, when you look at Chuck Todd, when you look at who else is there, Chris Hayes, all they are just puppets who go along with what the rich people and establishment tell them to do. They are not the resistance. They're the corporatist whores who are just goggling down their freaking throats whatever people with money tell them to do, and then they just regurgitate it to you, making and trying to make you believe that they're part of some resistance. They're not. They're pro-establishment, pro-Hillary Clinton, and I call them whores. Whores. I have more respect for whores than I do that, but ultimately they're just being pimped out. Horrible, ugly human beings who are just doing what they're told, pretending, acting like they're genuine when they're not. Let's just move on to the next story, Jason.
Yeah,
talking about that topic.
Chuck Todd creeps me out, but maybe not as much as Jim Jordan creeps me out. And Jim Jordan is the congressman who has now been accused of ignoring the molestation of not one, not two, not dozens of athletes, Luke. Hundreds of athletes at Ohio State. See, this is what I don't understand about people. I'll go over a story like this, and I'll talk about this, about people in power either being involved in child abuse or covering up child abuse. And it's in the hundreds of victims. It's been covered up for decades. These things happen. I'm currently watching The Keepers on Netflix, and there's an interesting part where a gentleman called Skippy comes into the mix. You know, that Chuck Todd, that creepy Chuck Todd guy you were talking about, he sat next to a guy named Skippy, John Podesta once. I'm just saying it's weird. But this guy, read the article. The people that worked, one of them was like, I consider Jim Jordan a friend, but if he's going to sit there and look you in the eye and tell you he didn't know about this stuff, he's a liar. We all knew. And, this is one of the people that came public. And I don't know how you could live with yourself as things like this were going on, Luke, if you're a straight-laced human being that has compassion, possibly a family of any sort, how you could stay silent while young people are being abused and sexually molested. But Jim Jordan, politician, he's got no problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is an allegation from him. I don't like the source of this story. I think the story would be a lot more powerful if it wasn't written by a piece of trash publication like Think Progress. They definitely
There's
have an
plenty of
agenda.
them. I just chose this one. Trust me. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
over.
In the article, they even call Sean Hannity a white supremacist, which is just, again, just more hyperbolic bullcrap. But again, these are allegations that are going out there. I believe the allegations should be heard, and there definitely needs to be more looked into the specific stories. But yeah, let's not use that horrible piece of trash.
Here we go. We got the Washington Post instead. We'll have the Bezos publication. There we go.
Got the Bezos freaking AI written technocratic daily here. But wait, hold on. Before that, we actually got some super chats that we wanted to address. We got one by Steve saying you're a better Alex Jones than the original. Whatever. I don't know. I don't like to classify as better or not better, but Avatats also give a $2 super chat saying never sell out, guys, love the show. Well, thank you, Avatats, with your super chats. We won't ever sell out because we don't need to. We have you guys, and you guys being the eyes and ears helps us grow and expand, and we have a lot more work to do. It's not easy. There's not a lot of financial security in this job, but this job gives me an opportunity to do what I love, and I'm able to sleep at night very soundly and peacefully. With that mental security of knowing that I'm actually doing something that I love and being genuine and honest about it, unlike some other people. And then we have another 50 Crow chat from Northern Lights who says, do you know that Tommy Robinson was convicted for mortgage fraud together with Deborah Rothschild? No, I have never heard that, Northern Lights. Something I will look into after this broadcast. All right, Jason, do you want to answer some of those super chats, or do you want to move on with the next story?
Well, I think that's it for that, and we might as well move on to the final story of the day, where I know that you're going to have a little bit to say about it, but I'm not happy about it. I hope, and I'm still holding out hope, that peace with North Korea is a real thing, disarmament's a real thing, bringing them into the 21st century is a real thing. But according to this one, Luke, it's not looking so great. After talks, North Korea accuses U.S. of gangster-like demands. And again, I'm really hoping that somehow diplomacy wins out. I don't know.
I hope so, too. I always had a very pessimistic view on this topic, mainly because of the military-industrial complex and their very effective lobby on Donald Trump, and Donald Trump being surrounded by the military-industrial complex and their operations all over the Asian Sea and the Pacific Ocean that is directly there for China and really no one else. With the North Korea peace talks now kind of in shambles, I still, even though I'm pessimistic, and I think people should be pessimistic, I still have a little bit of hope, and I think we're going to find out more about how these conversations proceed when we see Putin and Trump meet up, and also expect peace not to be an option if the trade war between China and the United States continues. If you see more tensions between China and the United States, expect there not to be peace with North Korea. And sadly, I do expect that to happen. That's my own personal view on it. But for the rare case, which I personally do not believe in, but some other people do, if there is easing of tensions between China and the United States, you could bet that the peace accords will continue in a successful way between North Korea and the United States. That's just the way that I see it, my own personal point of view. But again, I'm kind of pointing to the more pessimistic state with my understanding of all the events that led up to this, historical events, and just also a gut feeling that I have about this. And don't worry, I'm not talking about QAnon. QAnon's not calling me, giving me specific information like other people are claiming. This is just something that I'm getting from studying this for a number of years now and looking at the evidence. All right, Jason, what other stories do we have going on?
That's the last one, my man. We've been broadcasting now for almost an hour and a half. We've taken all the calls. You know,
It feels like it was just 15 minutes. Every time we do the show, it just feels like we're like I'm like, okay, we got to slow it down. We're gonna move past an hour. It's supposed to be an hour, but it's already an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about some other stuff. We could take some more comments from everyone, super chats, and also the regular chats. People are saying, "Why don't you answer my chat unless I pay?" Like, okay, well, we'll answer some of them and we'll see them and
yeah,
look
I
at
try
them.
to get in there when I can, but you know, we're doing a radio show where we literally, you know, we don't have a producer. This is it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
us
yeah,
two.
yeah.
We're not only going around. Oh, Steve, you're killing it today. We'll get to you in a second, but I'm going around. I'm trying to make it look somewhat interesting. You know, flashback. Back and forth. We have to know these subjects. We are interacting with you every once in a while. I'll send a link in there. Luke will send a link. I mean, we just can't comment on every single little thing. I know there's a lot of Q lovers over there.
Yeah, a lot of Q lovers. I love the Putin son comment. I love the Israel comments. What other comments are we getting in here? We're getting a lot of interesting comments in here, to say the least. And it's definitely a very poppin', very entertaining chat room to be a part of. I have the chat room open as Jason is producing this show and running the graphics and transitions of the show as this is happening. It's basically just me and Jason. Unless we get another revenue source, then we could actually hire an actual producer. I really want to take phone calls, but we have to buy more gear with that. Maybe we should look into maybe a crypto endorsement, or if you guys have any ideas, let us know what we could do to expand our operations. But definitely hiring a producer, taking phone calls from you guys would be very interesting. Maybe we could do that Saturday, have a Saturday talking show, which would be pretty hilarious with the comment section that we're seeing, and the callers that we would get. But it's been very busy here. There's a bunch of conferences that I'm going to be at coming up, and I'm going to be speaking at. The first one is Freedom Fest in Las Vegas this week, which I'm going to be at. Then there's Infinite Man that's happening in Portugal, and also Anarcha Portugal, which is also happening in Portugal, that I'm going to be at this week and the next week following. So if you guys are in Lisbon or in Las Vegas, feel free to hit me up. Let me know if there's any interesting stories that you guys want me to work on in those specific areas. And of course, we have the main event coming up that I'm helping organize, that's happening in February of 2019. And that, of course, is the main Anarchapulco event that happens every year, and it keeps getting bigger every single year. The first year, 4 years ago, was 300 people, then it was 600, then it was 1,200, then it was, I believe, 2,000, and now they're expecting a lot more people to come to Anarchapulco. It's one of my most favorite conferences because it's in Mexico. The people are really awesome. There's a health and wellness week. They do all the little crazy hippie stuff. They got like raw cacao and meditations and yoga all over the place, along with a lot of very interesting anarchy, libertarian, free-minded individuals that are also a part of that event. And this year, I was able to help with some of the negotiations, and people like David Icke and Ron Paul will be there at Anarchapulco this year. Next year in February of 2019. In Acapulco, Mexico. I'm going to send the ticket information in the chat room. So if you guys are interested in going, definitely book your tickets because they are expected to sell out. And we have a promo code that gives you 10% off and gives you a discount on the original tickets, and also gives us a 10% commission, which you guys win and we win with the discount. And I hope to see some of you guys in either Las Vegas, Portugal, or Acapulco next year in February of 2019. And then we also have some super chats. Jason, do you want to go over those?
Yeah, let's link the two together because they're both by Steve. How bad do you think that we need North Korea's rare metals war? And then is there a link between that?
Let's answer that one.
He asked another question follow-up that's the same, basically, saying that
you're Putin's son?
No, it's not that. That's not Steve. I was going to get to that in a moment. Steve asked that and then said, does this have to do with the Internet of Things, or is there a link there? I'll say this. I don't think we need anything from North Korea. I think we want strategically to be there, and if we are going to be there, of course we're going to take their rare metals, okay? It's just like Afghanistan. Of course we're going to go after their rare minerals and whatnot once we find them there. I'm not saying that they knew or didn't know before the invasion, but we exploit everything that we take over, and of course he's Putin's son. Of course, look at the man.
Hey.
Of course he is. Listen, Putin has hundreds of illegitimate children. Luke is obviously one of them. I mean, I'm breaking it here, folks. He's little poot. Okay, he's little poo-poo. He's ready to rule with an iron fist. What are they going to give you? Are they going to give you Crimea? Is that part of the deal?
I'm gonna get back at you, Jason. I'm gonna get back at you. Not today. I'm gonna savor this one. I'm gonna let you
Okay.
have this one.
Okay,
And I'm gonna
thank
get
you.
back at you.
Okay. Well,
No, I'm a Polak. I was born and raised in Poland. I am not a Ruski. I am not Russian, just for the record. As far as your other question, Steve, about the rare metals, there is, a lot of interesting geopolitical moves made with China, specifically in Africa, going after rare metals. The United States does collect a lot of rare metals from Afghanistan, which is one of the many reasons, the other reasons being opium and other things, why the United States has yet not left that endless war that started 17 years ago, and it is the longest running U.S. war ever in U.S. history. But rare metals are important. I don't think the United States needs them as badly now, and I don't think that's one of the motivating factors, but a caveat, an additional plus to them. We have another super chat by Northern Light who says, have you watched the Freemason royal ritual here on YouTube? No, I haven't, but Jason, did you?
yeah, you've seen it. I'm thinking what he's talking about is the one with the old men inside the Masonic Lodge, and it's like the woman dancing around in like a weird garb or whatever. I've seen it. You know, a bunch of old men doing weird things. Doesn't shock me not anymore. I mean, hey, we're less than a month away. I think we're like a week away from a bunch of old men in the woods dressing up, playing in front of a 40-foot owl god, okay, and talking about dull care and sacrifice. So yes, I've seen.
And just as Bill Clinton described a bunch of naked Republicans running around the tree or the redwoods.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, you mean that thing where the Republicans go running naked around the tree? Oh, I'm glad you brought up Bill Clinton. Did you see the video yet where he and Hillary are riding on a Delta flight, like today?
No.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. And of course, the QAnon conspiracy theorists are like, have their assets been freezed? Why aren't they on a private jet? Obviously, they're getting taken in. They're done. But I think the explanation is something other than that. But it was kind of weird to see Bill and Hillary Clinton together on a Delta flight.
Yeah, it's weird to see them together in general with the turbulent past that they had. We got other super chats. Thank you, Steve, so much for all the super chats. They help us run and be fully independent and hopefully one day hire a producer so we could and take phone calls on this broadcast. So I really appreciate you, Steve. And he says, you guys rock. I don't know how much I gave you so far, but you guys rock. Well, thank you. You rock even more, Steve. Steve says, we need a DNA test. Putin's son. I actually took a DNA test, and if you ever are going to take a DNA test, make sure to do it under a false name, since it's coming out that when you do private DNA tests now and have your DNA linked to your name, that these companies now copyright and own your DNA and could do whatever they want with it, which is pretty terrifying, especially if you look at the implications of gene splicing and all the other horrible experiments that they're running now. And definitely don't recommend doing a DNA test on yourself with your actual name. But it is interesting to take a look at where you actually came from. And you can't do this in the United States with DNA tests because of certain stupid laws and regulations. But if there's, you can actually download your DNA code, upload it to websites, usually using VPNs or just other websites where you could actually look at not pre-existing conditions, but medical conditions that you are most likely to get. What is that called, Jason? I'm totally having a little mind blanking
It's not
here.
pre-existing conditions. What would it be then? It would be.
It's not pre-existing. It's like the diseases and ailments that you're
risks for.
Yeah.
Risk marker? Yeah.
There's another way of saying it, but they actually tell you the risk marker of you getting certain cancers, which is also interesting to look at. And you actually see where your kind of DNA came from. And 90% of my DNA came from the northern top region of Poland, and 10% of it came from, can you guess, Jason?
Ruski country?
Son of a bitch. No.
Ukraine? I don't know.
No.
Where is it? Greenland?
Denmark.
Okay.
which is also geographically very close. But yes, so I am genetically 90% Northern Polish and 10% Danish, which was a surprise to me, which I didn't even know about. But I probably shouldn't even talk about that, since now the artificial intelligence Amazon companies are going to be looking it up, trying to get my DNA and try to screw me over with my genetically modified, genetically specific bio warfare weapons that they have on certain people. That's a whole nother different topic that we could get into. Moving on with the super chats. We have one by Northern Light. No, on Halloween 2017, the Freemasons celebrated 300 years of royal influence in London. I have not seen that, but it's something that I will look into.
No, yeah.
No.
I guess I got something to YouTube tonight. Woohoo.
No, there's a lot of things to look up from the super chats that we got. We, of course, appreciate all the super chats and keeping us fully free and independent, and it means the world to us, because without you guys, we wouldn't be anything or anybody, and the only reason we are is because of you guys. So big thanks and big lots of love to you guys. We got another super chat by, again, the Northern Light, saying the Masons sang "God Save the Queen, let her reign over us" in unison. YouTube Freemason royal ritual. Well, that's interesting. Definitely probably a Freemason connection to the royal family in some way. Do you know anything about that, Jason?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, the symbology that you see with the royal families, the power elite, all intertwined with this kind of, I guess, a Kabbalic base system of different symbols. So, you have the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. We could go on forever. I mean, I remember when I went with Aaron Dykes over to the George Washington Masonic Memorial, and you go through there in the levels. And if you know which one I'm talking about, the one that's basically arched like a phallus. You know what I mean? It's a long upper one, and then they have usually
it's like a little yeah.
It's
I actually was there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go floor by floor by floor, and by the end of it, you're in the Rosicrucian era. You're talking about the Crusades. We're talking about Assassin's Creed style stuff. Like, we were that far back. And when you have royalty that's that far back, of course the symbology is interrelated. And Steve, dollar bills, y'all, is right, yo. Thank you. We got another one. I mean, I thought we were going to wrap this up 15 minutes ago. I am sweaty. It's like 9 degrees in here, but let's read this one. Russian flag and the Masons, and it's a double-headed eagle representing how Russia rules the world, about the East and the West. I know which one he's talking about, the double-sided eagle, right? Isn't it the eagle? Yes, the double-headed eagle. I've seen the symbology. Listen, again, hermetic symbolism, as above, so below. They love repetition. I'm by far nowhere near the expert like a Jordan Maxwell or somebody like that is. But, obviously I've read the books and I've seen the YouTube videos. So I do think it's an interesting subject worthy of more research. Steve, back with more. Why does it seem like the government wants to replace our family structure? Just wondering. Well, Steve, the reason they want to break up the family structure is that it's easier to go after individuals who don't have a basis in community and family. I've got my family's back, and it used to be that you didn't only have your family's back, Luke. You had your neighbor's back and his neighbor's back and your town's back. And there's been a lot of deterioration. We've been isolated from each other. And now your neighbor might be your enemy because they have a Trump sign on their lawn, or they have a Go Bernie bumper sticker. You don't know, you don't want to know that person anymore just because of that base visual value. And you're going to find that you're going to have more in common with that person across the street, whether or not he has a Bernie or a Trump bumper sticker, than you could have imagined if you just reached out to that person.
Yeah. People don't even talk to each other anymore, and I think it's very important to understand here, and I'm happy Steve brought up the topic here, that the globalists, the elites, the corporatists, whatever you may call them, but the social structures in the United States, especially all over the world, have changed, and the family structure has been attacked very successfully, especially in the African-American community, where families are separated, where it's becoming more rare than ever to see a mother and father being able to raise children together. And the state and the globalists or whoever they may be, it's in their interest, because when they are able to break up the family structure, they're able to create slaves that are a lot easier controlled. When you have a family unit, you have children growing up in stable homes, who become stable human beings. They don't want people to be stable because that gets rid of their main profit motives in this world, whether it's government indoctrination, schooling, which kids are forced into to regurgitate state propaganda and to just be good followers and listeners and factory workers, because that's what the educational system was based on. It was started by the Rockefellers in the United States specifically to create good factory workers. That's why schools are 8 hours with one lunch break and just repetitive tasks, repeating things over and over again so they could be good factory workers. There's no factories anymore. That's why this whole system's broken. And if they could break over the family structure and have people not being raised properly by their mother and by their father properly, they're going to look to social media. They're going to look to television. They're going to look to the education system to raise them. And those structures raise them in a way that they're the perfect consumer, and the perfect consumer in today's day and age in society is someone who is needy, is someone who is lacking, someone who is fearful, someone who is not in control of themselves and has very low impulse and is spending their entire lives ultimately not living their life, but it's being dictated by other influences around them that people don't even notice. The level of propaganda and social control that we are seeing pushed on young children whose parents are just giving them cell phones in their hands at an early age, the over-sexualization, the over-perversion, the ego, the pride, the gluten, the lust that they push onto little kids right now is absolutely terrifying, seeing the way that the world is being raised up right now and the subliminal psychological effects that it is having on the next future generation of this country. And that also should be something that should be talked about more heavily. We got another super chat by Steve. Thank you, Steve. And he says that this broadcast was brought to you by Steve and Putin's son. Well, thank you, Steve. Yeah, appreciate that very much. All right, Jason, we got 1 minute. I was supposed to go 44 minutes ago. But you became a carnivore lately. I want to hear about this.
I mean, Luke, I didn't think we'd be talking about this almost 2 hours into the broadcast, but why not?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'd seen a lot of people are talking about the keto diet and all these other diets, and not that I could keep with the keto diet, because I like sugar, and even though I do vegetables, I like mashed potatoes and things like that, and I often rice,
you're a mashed potato guy.
A little mashed potatoes, but I end up making a full meal. I cook for my nieces all the time, and I start eating this stuff. And dude, after every meal, I am exhausted. I'm drained. I feel terrible. I feel like I need to go take a nap. So I came across this Joe Rogan podcast with this guy who's a physician, ex-rugby player, talking about the carnivore diet. And he's talking about not just meat, but just red meat. And at one point, he's like, well, are we really talking like grass-fed beef? And he's like, no, man. He's like, listen, even if you have the GMO 73, 27 ground beef, it's still the number 3, number 4 contender in the world. So really, dude, I mean, the last week, all I've been doing is when I get hungry, I slam a steak. I bought like 10 pounds of ground beef. I got a roast in there. Don't get me wrong. I'm sneaking a Brussels sprout here and there, but or a piece of cheese. But for the most part, my diet this week has been 90%, not maybe more, red meat, and I feel awesome. Dude, I feel freaking awesome. I'm waking up in the morning. I'm not tired. I ate a 2-pound steak today. No problem. Easy. And I'm not hungry. I probably won't eat for another 16, 20 hours. Like I said, I don't feel the lag. I got a lot of energy. I'm waking up in the morning. I'll tell you if I die in a heart attack for 3 or 4 weeks or I don't. But this is and you know what? Jordan Peterson is on it. He was on the last Rogan podcast, and Rogan's like, dude, you look awesome. He's like, you're glowing, you look awesome. And Peterson's like, I have abs for the first time in my life. I've never worked out ever. And he's like, he's Mr. Strict. He's like, it's salt and beef and salt. He's like, and hey, he's doing it. If Jordan Peterson can do it, gosh darn it, so can Jason Bermas.
Yeah, you Jason, you definitely do look like a Brussels sprout sneaker. A little bit of the Hamburglar, from my own personal opinion. But wait. So no vegetables, no Are you still doing sugar? Or are you still doing bread?
I wish I wasn't
just straight meat. Just meat. That's
meat. I mean, I'm having coffee, but I'm trying to do stevia with that. I shouldn't probably be doing the caffeine either. I'm having an Arnold Palmer now and then with an unsweetened iced tea and some lemonade. You know, I'm still going to have my beers, but the way I'm looking at it, Luke, is I was doing
Beers have fluoride, Jason.
Anyway, I was doing all that stuff and eating whatever I wanted before. So
What sounds like a paleo diet, though.
I don't know if it would even be considered that, would it? Like in a paleo, I don't think you can have any carbs, so beer's out.
Is it? And isn't this horrible for like your colon and your bowel movement?
No, I'm barely pooping, Luke. It's almost.
That's not a good thing, Jason. You're supposed to poop.
No,
you're
man, my body's absorbing the might of the mighty red-blooded animals that I'm eating. Hey, if anybody wants to ship me some delicious bison meat, I'm all for it. Let's go.
Do they have storable survival food that's just meat? No, right?
I doubt it. I mean, I'm buying and I'm freezing and I'm trying to live. I'm literally turning 39 in how many days? What am I? Like less than 3 weeks. 2 weeks away.
Yeah,
a little more than 2. So I'm only getting older. You know, the show is probably halfway older.
Our birthdays are very close together.
Oh yeah? What are you at? I'm a July 24th baby, 1979.
I'm a July 27th.
Oh, look at you. Oh.
So you're more cancerous, right?
No, I'm a Leo actually. If you believe in that sort of things, I make the cut by a day.
Okay.
All right, are we done with the nonsense at the end, or did we just lose Luke? I think that we did. Okay, guys, there you go. Luke Rudkowski freezes up as we're on our nonsense rant at the end. But dude, guys, I do want to say thank you so much for joining us for almost 2 hours. It seems Luke is back. Okay, so nope, there he goes again.
Wait, what happened? What happened there?
I don't know. You dropped out. Nobody else did. We're good. Do you want to tell it? Yeah, you want to tell everybody goodbye?
It's about time. But yeah, definitely. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, but you're freezing up and down, like you're going. There you
go. Something's happening with my camera. I don't know what's happening. But keep me up to date with this diet. It may be something I should try. It's difficult when you're always on the road. I'm going to be on the road for a lot. Definitely stay in touch with me on Twitter. Keep me updated on this diet. Let me know how it goes. Is maybe something that I will personally try. And then let me know what you guys are going through as well. But Jason, thank you for this broadcast, and thanks everyone who participated, chatted with us, gave us super chats, and allowed us to be free and independent media. I love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for a lot more.